anyone who wants to become a pledge.
What fresh hell is this?
End up with some mathematics. You need logic for money acrobatics. Money is confusing like laws of physics.
Never wake you up in the middle of the night.
Elderly and persons with disabilities, it's time to choose our leaders. Let's show up and participate in the special interest group elections. Starting June through August this year, your vote, your voice, my vote, my voice. This message is brought to you by the Uganda Electoral Commission.
Don't miss on U24.
Entrepreneurs Hub, giving you a deep and unique insight into agribusiness, services, ICT and innovation, industrialization and so much more. Entrepreneurs Hub, growing your small, medium and large business entity. With yours truly, Sandra Kahunde.
Youth, elderly, and persons with disabilities, it's time to choose our leaders. Let's show up and participate in the special interest group elections. Starting June through August this year, your vote, your voice, my vote, my voice. This message is brought to you by the Uganda Electoral Commission.
Youth of Purpose.
My name is Erica Murunchi and welcome back to Be Inspired by Erica. Hope you're fine. So today I want to talk about meaningful friendships. Friendships are important to us because they help us relate with others. For example, family, cousins, and friends at school, and many others. How do you make those friendships meaningful? Surround yourself with people who inspire, uplift, and support you. Meaningful friendships are a treasure, and having them in your life can bring joy. Invest in friendships that nourish your mind, heart, and soul. Remember, meaningful friendships are a two-way street. Be willing to show up, listen, and support, and you'll find that that same love and support you gave will come back to you. Stay blessed, much love.
So, how far we have come, especially that tomorrow we are going to be having party elections for the NRM. So joining me is a very interesting panel, and I'll allow them to introduce themselves, starting it off with my very far extreme left. Please, if you can introduce yourself to us.
Yes, thank you very much, Lynn. My name is Mujisha Emanzi, panelist at this show, and I'm very excited to be here to discuss the role of the youth in national politics, especially along the development agenda of our country, but also how that cascades to the growth, the democratic growth, not only of Uganda, but of the region and the continent of Africa. I'm very excited to be part of this show, and I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mujisha, for joining us and for always creating time to come and discuss these issues and also be able to give information to the young people. Next to Mugisha is Ayot. Please kindly introduce yourself to us.
Thank you so much, Traceline. My name is Nancy Caroline Ayot. I am very happy to be on the show to discuss the youth in the political space, especially in Uganda 2026, Uganda Decides 2026. It's very pertinent, of course, that we integrate what the 75% is doing and how they are contributing to the democracy of this country.
Interesting. To what the 75 are contributing. Getting to next to Nancy is Rodney. Rodney, please, if you can introduce yourself to us.
Well, thank you very much, our dear host, Tracy Lynn. My name is Rodney Adroni. I'm currently a student at Makerere University, an active community organizer, and also a member of the 8th National Youth Parliament. And I'm so glad to be here. Thank you for this thoughtful invitation. I look forward to a really engaging conversation and enriching conversation. This is a very timely topic about youth participation in politics and in the context of party primaries. We have the NRM primaries tomorrow that are going to be taking place, and there is a lot to discuss concerning how the youth will be involved, also the nature of the elections in terms of violence, and basing on what we've already seen. Otherwise, over to you, Tracy Lynn. Thank you for the opportunity.
Interesting. Thank you so much, Rodney, for joining us. And to kick it off, we will know that tomorrow, which is the 17th of July, we are going to be having party elections, and especially party elections for the ruling party. Unfortunately, we do not have the youth elections tomorrow, but we also do appreciate the fact that there are very many young people who are instrumental in campaigns, in elections, in mobilization, but also those who are actively engaging and taking part in those spaces. So I'll be getting to Emanzi. To pick it from you, Emanzi, what perspective do young people bring, especially in the national politics? Is it a unique one? Is it a diverging one? Or is it a recommendable one from your own understanding?
Thank you, Tracy Lynn. My attempt to respond to that question would be more unorthodox, because in my understanding, what I have seen every time there is a looming election coming or in the offing, that is when we see most actors engaging young people to be part of their caravans in terms of, one, the numbers. My sister, in her introduction, Ayot mentioned the percentage, 75%. Of the 75% that we talk about, it is not all of them that are youth. Of the 75%, it is a threshold of the 75 that is used, which is still the second largest demographic dividend in Uganda at about 46%. So, to answer that question, the time that the duty bearers or the people that are running for elective politics, many a time engage the young people when it is convenient for them.
Yes.
For example, if you notice from the run-up to the 2026 election that is coming next year, from last year, there has been a lot of youth engagement in political drives, campaigns, and caravans, right? They are coming in terms of numbers, but when we start to introspect that aspect and say, okay, yes, now we're having very many young people following politicians and all this, but where are the young people that are taking the mantle to be the leaders, to be the ones elected?
Yes.
That is where the script flips. And I think the question should be, why is it that as the young people, even to date, we are still subject to the disposal of politicians? And this is my 2 cents. One, I think most of us young people have been indoctrinated to think that we can only play a supporting role. By supporting, I mean, when you look at most of the candidates right now, they're looking for young people to push their social media agenda.
Yes.
They're looking for young people to hang their posters around. They're looking for young people to be part of their caravans or their trucks, going announcing, ABC is right here. But to me, I think that is a very minimalist role that young people are engaged in. And just so you know, it is not accidental. It is by design. And why do I say it is by design? It is because, one, Even if it were me, when you look at the laws of the universe, anything that poses threat to your existential being or your existentialism, by default, you do not equip it. You do not give it the powers that you are sure they will use to usurp you one time. And I think that is one of the reasons why right now the United States of America and the other global powers are fighting so hard for other countries that are labeled or are in the red zone not to have nuclear weapons. Why? Because they know the moment they have them, they can use it against them and the script can flip. So, back to us, the young people. I think moving forward, one, we have to have a deliberate agenda of having the young people as main actors in the political spectrum, as political players. How? For example, the party primaries that are going to start tomorrow for the National Resistance Movement, if you realize that most of the primaries, most of the candidates that are standing, the incumbents that had the party flag previously, they are doing everything within their right to stay the incumbent flag bearers.
Yes.
And when I mention everything within their right, I mean both good and bad. Why? We are looking at the commercialization of politics, whereby the people that have been having the flags, they have amassed a certain threshold of wealth, which they can use to shield themselves from the new entrants, more especially us, the young people. Secondly, they're using the state resources, because we have seen this, we have seen cars of the government participating in these primaries, which contravenes the Electoral Commission laws that were passed in the amendment of 2015. So I think there is more than meets the eye, and as we continue in this conversation, we are going to decipher most of these challenges and come up with an antidote for them. I beg to submit for now.
Thank you so much. I think you mentioned very pertinent issues, especially in terms of at what point are young people engaged, especially even in the general times. They just reach out to you when it is election time. But also you highlight how the young people have actually been used and the challenges that are affecting them in terms of showing up, also the power dynamics that do play quite a vital role there. So getting to you, Nancy. Nancy, from your perspective, I do understand you're the secretary for the People's Progressive Party. And to pick a point from your perspective, especially in terms of the opposition or in terms of your political party and youth structures, how actively do they engage with the national development or national politics?
Thank you so much, Jocelyn, for that question. So I'm going to be honest about the reality of tokenism in Ugandan politics, especially in terms of youth representation. Because it is not just the PPP, it is not just the NRM, it is not just the DP, but when these structures were created, they were created with the mindset that young people do not have the representation in mainstream parties. So it is not an isolation to my party alone. However, when it comes to the engagement, like my brother already stated, it is seasonal and it is political. And this comes from the fact that young people are not united with their own agenda. Now, I do not want to go into factors that have kept us away from the mainstream politics, or how our history was orchestrated in such a way that, we cannot meaningfully participate. Those factors exist. However, what is there for us to do? Take up spaces, because young people are not just following other people, they're not just standing on tracks. And if you see it in this show today, young people are doing a lot of advocacy, for example. We're not here to, we're not here to take tea and go home. We are here to talk about the issues that we face. We're here to talk about what representation means for us, but we're also here to talk about the mainstream and how we can penetrate those structures. Now, when we talk about tokenism and how terrible it is for us young people, it means that we also have to do the deliberate work of refusing to follow an agenda that does not actually meet the standard for what our future should look like. For example, you cannot go behind a politician who will not address the unemployment issue, who has not talked about the unemployment issue. A politician who does not know about what technology and IT, but also intellectual property and things to do with the whole future of artificial intelligence has to do with young people. You cannot go behind a politician who does not talk about inclusivity and diversity. Now, when I talk about inclusivity and diversity, I don't just mean women, you know, because usually people are like, oh, now she has started on the women topic, and that is not it at all. It is not just women, because we are talking about persons with disability. When we talk about persons with disability, if you're a young person, a youth in Uganda, for example, and you have a disability or you acquire disability along the way, it means that you are marginalized twice. But based on the fact that, one, you're a young person, number two, that you have a disability. And now when you're a woman, you carry on the same issues that also women face. In this, we need to organize better, obviously. We need to organize better. But also, the thing that I find very disturbing about us, not just young people, but Ugandans in general, is the fact that we have never truly had a national agenda for ourselves. That whenever this region is actually talking about thing A, the other region thinks that it's not their problem. And yet, for a democracy to work, or for us to actually push for a democracy that works for any country, we need to be united in terms of our agenda. We need to know that we can only disagree on implementation. We need services delivered. How we deliver is where we disagree. So that is my 2 cents for now. I think the young people are heavily involved. I think they're coming up in positions, they're taking up positions. I think they're doing a lot of advocacy. And we know that the civic space is tough, but nonetheless we're doing it. And you know, many times I hear people saying, what are the Gen Z doing, the Gen Z of Uganda? They're not like the Gen Z of Kenya. And I would just like to say that the political terrains are very different. They are very different. And when people say that they will kill us all, I just want to say that they will. They will. And not just because I am biased or because I'm from an opposition political party, but because I understand that this is much different. But also the politics of Kenya has evolved over time in a different way than ours. The Kenyans have been doing their Saba for a long time. They have history of success on that. And even now they have their issues because we know from the last time, from the last Saba, some of them were killed. A lot of people died, and there were young people who were also fighting for the freedom of their country. But now in Uganda, alternatively, I believe that dialogue is really the best method. And people may say that it's not working, but you know, things crack, systems evolve. The only consistent thing is change. And I am not exactly worried. Our democracy is barely 30 years old. If we had to take away the before 1986, the multipartyism is only 20 years old, really. So we can actually evolve. We are still young and we are still moving forward, and the young people are doing their part. That's my submission. Interesting.
The young people are doing their part. We shall get to that if actually young people are doing their part.
Yes. Despite all challenges, of course.
Okay,
yes.
Interesting. So to get to you, Rodney, I do understand that you are a member of the 8th National Youth Parliament. And if I may pick it all, I do also know you are contesting for the Speaker of that Parliament. Now, my question is, the National Youth Parliament has been one of the bedrocks, especially in terms of nurturing young people that have taken on leadership positions in other aspects of political aspirations, even after they take on leadership from the National Youth Parliament. Now, to you, what do you think is the role of the National Youth Parliament, but also what do you think is the role of other stakeholders, and which stakeholders can we collaborate with in terms of sensitizing young people, but also making them realize that it's not just about the numbers, you know, and keeping on this advocacy that we do speak of each and every time?
Well, thank you very much, Tressilyn, for that wonderful question. Recently, there was a certain gentleman that was interviewed in the news, and he made an assertion that, and I quote verbatim, that the adults usually, whenever there is a new electoral cycle, they come to these young people and then they tell them that they are the leaders of tomorrow. And then when 5 years elapse, they come back with the same rhetoric and they continue to emphasize this position that the young people are the leaders of tomorrow. And so they wait until these young people are miserable adults and time has actually caught up with them. So to many people, we might find this as hilarious, but it actually is reflective of the status quo. And now for us to be able to have an appreciation of the situation that we are contending with, we need to have a multi-dimensional exploration of youth participation in our multi-party system. If I may just take us back briefly, in the late 70s and the early 80s, we see that this was an epoch that was marred by a lot of conflict. There was a lot of war. It was a tumultuous period in our country's history. And this, among other things, was the time that we saw an increasing level of participation of young people in politics. It was also attributable to the Liberation War and the vision bearer at the time, President Museveni, who was a young person. So it explained the increasing level of participation in young people, in the youth, in the politics of our country. However, this participation was not really on a formal and democratic basis. Most of the people that were engaged in this politics were on the premise of coercion. Some were coerced, some were integrated into the politics based on patronage, others it was military conscription. And it was also this time when we saw politics being turned into a battleground, and then we now start to see militarization of politics normalized, which set the tone of what we actually see today. Now, when we move to the era between 1986 and 2005, before the reintroduction of the multi-party system, we essentially had a no-party system. The political parties at the time, like the UPC, the Democratic Party, had been weakened and enfeebled. And so the young people, much as they were now starting to get increasingly involved in the politics, they could only express themselves and their ideas using the dominant ideology at the time, which was of the national resistance movement, and through state orchestrated bodies like the NYC that was introduced in 1993 through the National Youth Council Act. However, these were bodies that at the time were introduced as on the basis of tokenism, like she has asserted, and they were meant to act as implementers. They were basically rubber stamp bodies that were meant to implement without really independently engaging in the politics of our country. Now, fast forward to 2005, after the 2005 referendum, we see the reintroduction of the multi-party system. Now, one would think that this was now an opportunity to open up the democratic space for young people to engage within the inter-party politics and the intra-party politics. But then it can't be. So now what happened was that now we see systems and processes that became highly contentious and marred with a lot of election violence. Now, fast forward today, the youth, like she has earlier on asserted, who constitute the majority of the population and also form almost more than half of the voters in these particular elections. And their numerical strength has been under-leveraged by these political parties, but even the youth themselves. But also, like he said, that we have quite a number of political and socio-economic encumbrances as we try to involve ourselves, as we try to integrate ourselves within or participate in politics, that if you look at the current system, it has been created in a way that is very limiting to young people. I want to give an example of the party fees, the party nomination fees. That, for example, in NRM, for someone that is trying to contest for member of parliament, you have to part with 3 million. And much as I'm not a proponent of the National Unity Platform, but it has set a very good precedent, we saw that for party primaries or party primary elections, that people are actually engaging in the politics, in the primaries, without having to part with any single coin. So this is a very good precedent, and I think it is a trend that is progressive and actually shows that it is possible to create the space to ensure that people are able to engage within this political space without having to pay a lot of money for nominations. Even the campaigns themselves are really demanding. But those are some of very many encumbrances as youth try to engage in the political space. Now, now to respond to your question, I'm currently a member of the National Youth Parliament, and we've been holding sub-regional sittings where youth from different sub-regions have actually been able to have critical conversations about different issues, about health, about education, and even politics. And particularly the Central Youth Parliament that I was attending, which took place about 2 weeks ago, we saw young people coming out to discuss about the current state of politics and the militarization and how the state has weaponized the military to actually stifle, to actually limit participation of young people. And it has also resulted into the despondency and apathy that we continue to see today. For example, why would a young person leave the comfort of their home and go into an election where they know the likelihood of being abducted is very high, where they're going to be arrested, where they're going to be brutalized, where they're going to be met with undue aggression of the state? So the National Youth Parliament as a platform has created an avenue for people to actually discuss and to direct all these concerns to our duty bearers to ensure that at least we have intervention. And like you say, there are quite a number of stakeholders. As the young people, the first stakeholders, the Electoral Commission, we have government, and we have even the security forces. Now, each of them are meant to play a role to ensure that as we engage with this politics, we have violent free elections. But what has happened? A case study of the Kawempe by-election, where we saw the military perpetrating violence, that even when sometimes it is young people that perpetrate this violence, but even the military has got increasingly involved in actually brutalizing young people within these campaign caravans. So it is a whole mess. It is a whole mess. But just in conclusion,
yes.
The National Youth Parliament has really tried to create a platform to ensure that people are able to have discussions, fundamental discussions about our participation in politics and how we can translate it into meaningful representation away from the tokenism, away from the symbolic kind of politics that we see today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rodney, and also for the amazing work that you're doing. And also to appreciate all stakeholders and all organizations that are actually showing through to ensure that young people are given the capacity building and the other techniques that are necessary. Personally, I'm also a member of the, I think, sixth East African Youth Parliament. Yes, so it's amazing for that amazing work that you're doing. To get back to Emanzi. Now, Emanzi, we well know that while we talk about youth involvement, especially in electoral processes, but also their role in national development, is that there could be some opportunities actually for young people who have stepped in, especially in regards to having elections that we are having tomorrow. I, for one, know a number of very many young people from across the country that have taken on that step to say, I offer myself to be part of this directly. So from you, what do you think are some of those opportunities that could be at our table as young people, especially in terms of making our contribution, being mindful of not being exploited to achieve the best and be part of the cause?
All right, thank you for that question. In every crisis, there lies an opportunity.
Yeah.
And many a time, the opportunity is not for all to see. It usually takes the brave, courageous, and risk takers. And I would like to give an example of a young man in the 1970s who looked at the trajectory of the democracy of our country and where it was going. He felt it uncomfortable. As a young man of the time, he mobilized his friends, all right? And they went overseas, wherever they conducted military training, because to him, in his headspace, the only way to change the status quo was through guerrilla warfare, right, or the use of arms.
Yes.
However, we are blessed with an opportunity right now that now our generation of the youth, we don't have that as an option exclusively of, say, going to the bush and conduct a people's protracted war and institute a new civilian-led government and abrogate the constitution and do all these things that we want to work in our favor. But to answer your question of what or where are the opportunities for the young people? Firstly, the very many young people that have, in Luganda they would say, abasibyo moyo. The ones that have toughened.
Have tied the heart.
Have tied the heart. Right?
Yes.
To come and participate in a process that not many of us are very comfortable with, regardless of how young our democracy is, like my sister was mentioning. We have to commend those young people. Why? Because it takes courage, it takes a tough skin, and it takes a whole heap of dedication and revolutionary decision making. So, for those young people that have come out, actually now we have an opportunity. Now that young people have been shouting, oh, we are tired of being led by the old people. Oh, you used to say you are the leaders of tomorrow, our tomorrow is now. Oh, no. This is the time.
Yes.
We rally behind the young people if we want the young people to represent our views. However, the million-dollar question is, the young people that have come out to participate in elective politics, do they have the interests of the young people at heart? Because, like you mentioned, tomorrow there is going to be primaries of the National Resistance Movement. There are very many young leaders, youthful leaders that have, gone into that. But do they have the agenda of the youth at heart, or do they have the agenda of their parties at heart? And now the other thing to introspect
or their
is
agenda.
Or do they have their personal agenda?
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we have to ascertain party agenda vis-a-vis youth agenda. She mentioned that we, the youth of Uganda, our issues are not homogeneous. The issues in Kisoro are not the same issues that are faced by the young people in Acholi. The issues in Fort Portal are not the same issues that are faced by the youth in, say, Uganda or any other region.
There could be those that are cross-cutting.
Can I just say
Please.
that the issues are the same. However, we do not think they're the same.
And okay.
That's
exactly my point. That if I came with a list of the problems that young people are facing and I took it from the north to the southern part of the country, would it be uniform? So, and that is where youth initiatives used to come in, like the National Youth Manifesto, which was mostly spearheaded by the civil society organization with a little help from the government. So if we institutionalize, or rather strengthen, mechanisms that bring about the needs of the young people and we have them centralized, right? Then it becomes easy for us, the young people, to rally behind our fellow young people and even the non-young people that are standing on the same grounds as us in terms of the challenges that we want to have solved. But to me, it is not so much about having the young people in there. It is a beautiful thing. We need young people. But that is not the end in itself. It's a means to an end. Because then I would ask you and my beautiful panel here, the young people that we have in Parliament representing us at all levels, in Parliament and MDAs, ministries, departments and agencies of government, if we conducted an audit on them vis-a-vis their work towards the youth priorities, would there be a mismatch or would we see a progress? I think these are the basic indicators to start with. Other than that, we shall speak the English, we shall sound intelligent, we shall have all these brilliant things, but if they're not organized, you know, I remember in the Pan-African movement, there is a slogan that we like to use. It's called organize, don't antagonize. Or the other way around. Don't antagonize, but rather organize. So, organization of the young people to have one voice. Needs might vary, approaches and strategies might vary, but the agenda surely has to be the same. And until we get to that level, maybe just as I wind this up, the other opportunity that I see for us as young people to capitalize on right now is at the time when there is an election coming, that is when the government listens.
Yes.
Have you realized it? It's a trend. So, can we as young people come up with those very pressing and dire needs that we need to be addressed in the next administration? Because we know right now what we're in, it's the pressure point. Can we maximize on it? I thank you.
Interesting. Maximizing on the
pressure point.
Pressure point.
Yeah.
Yes, pressure point. So you mentioned quite a number of things, but also what stood out for me was organized. Let us organize,
not
antagonize. And equally, you mentioned something that captured my attention when you did mention that most of the young people are actually having the opportunities to take part, but it's not just enough. Yeah. And also, the aspect of post-election processes. We have had the pre, then the during, but the post and the cycle thereafter will usually come through again in 2030 or even 2020 to 2029 when young people are showing up again trying for the National Youth Council. To get your perspective, Nancy, I do understand that you are one of those people that are working with civil societies.
Yes.
And have seen, for example, Center for Constitutional Governance trying to push reforms, especially in post-election democracy and the cycle to proceed even way beyond elections. But also, to add on that, I would like to pick your understanding, especially in representation of women and girls in national development of politics and participation. So reconcile the two. How does or how effectively, or what are the reforms that you're suggesting that could actually make the environment more friendly and freer for participation of young people?
Thank you very much, Tracy. So to begin with, I generally think for anything to do with inclusion to work, we need institutions that actually work. And one of the problems that this country faces is the fact that institutions do not work. You cannot trust the courts to hold the right decision, or if the courts hold the decision, then right after the court's decision, the military is kidnapping you off the street, that type of behavior. Secondly, we need a uniform application of the law, that there are no people who are more special or who are more Ugandan than others. That means that if the perpetrator holds a certain big position, they must also be brought to book. However, we cannot assure that accountability is something that we will have. So in the absence of the rule of law and in the absence of institutions that actually work, we're facing a system that is about to crumble. And the thing is, it's about to crumble under its own weight because it is trying to consolidate power, but at the same time, this is the worst way to do it because it encourages radicalism. It is why we see people forming different groups in order to counter the type of terror that the institutions that are meant to protect them actually should be doing. So you find, for example, talking of election season, you find political parties cannot trust the Electoral Commission to hold credible elections. So what do? They form groups, especially young people, youth groups, to watch the election, to protect the votes. They call them vote protection groups. And we, at our country forum at Center for Constitutional Governance, we had that come up that some of these youth groups are getting violent because we had an NRM youth group that even attacked the police, a person of the force on the street. And it's not just limited to NRM, by the way, because when we're talking about young people, we like to sanitize things, but we know that some of these youth groups get rowdy. They get rowdy and they think that the best way to counter is through violence. And it gives the security apparatus who are ready to unleash this violence the excuse to actually do it. This is really stressful for me. Now to come to the role of civil society. I think a lot of voter education has been done by civil society. A lot of voter education, not just the ordinary citizen, but also persons aspiring for position. We've seen the women, the Women Development Network, WDN, and KIC partner to educate persons contesting for lower position, for local government positions as well as parliamentary seats. They've been telling them what they need, how much money they need, how to put up a campaign strategy, who to approach for funds, and all the basics, so that they enter the political environment knowing. But now when we're coming down to election season, but also, pre, during, and after, one of my biggest concerns as a person from civil society is the technology-facilitated violence. Because we talk about violence on the streets, but that is something that spills over into our virtual spaces. So online, we find people are going to go bare knuckle. There's something on Twitter that they call they call it what Sunday? Something Sunday. That on Sunday people
violence.
just
Sundays for violence.
Sundays for violence. So people go online and just unleash verbal violence upon each other. And for women, for example, women politicians, that is such a terrible space. A terrible space to be in. We know of one contestant who has already been subjected to image-based violence. Nobody had a right to put out her image like that, and now it is affecting her political career, which is something that should have been dealt with swiftly, because she is a victim in this case, regardless of what anyone thinks, regardless of what cultural or conservative opinions come up. Nobody had a right to put out her image that way, and nobody had a right to ruin her reputation that way. Now, it is going to be extremely hard for her to compete in such a space. And it's another reason why women fear to come even on media to do a lot of advocacy, because you do not know where the attack is going to come from. It could be in your looks, it could be in what you wear, it could be in the way you speak, it doesn't matter. But the media and technology is a double-edged sword most of the times. It's something that people use to leverage opportunities, to advocate for the things that they want, for services and all that. Now, post-elections, we know that this is when politicians usually get youth to validate their struggles, especially when they have lost elections or when they're dissatisfied with the outcome of elections. And it is so terrible that you need a group of youth behind you to act rowdy. And I want to encourage young people out there not to go behind agendas that they do not understand. Especially there is a way, there is a legal way for these results to be challenged. Somebody can go to court, or even with declaration forms. People have their declaration forms, and immediately after results are declared like this, if you're not satisfied with the results that have been declared, you can go right there and then and write your letter and ask them for a recount. And the Election Commission has to do it. The officials of the Electoral Commission have to do that because it is accepted by law. So some of these things are things that can actually happen peacefully, things that simple diplomacy can solve. I discourage a lot of noise and going into combat over things that you're just supporting. That's why we need the young people to have their own agenda. We need them to have their own agenda. And our agenda is on service delivery. It is on good governance. It is not on the immediate result of the elections. Albeit that is also important. It is really important, but that is something that you can challenge within the courts. We know that judicial advocacy is not what it used to be, because right now we have judges taking decisions that, that make us frown a little bit. But then I can't go too much into that. I'm a lawyer and I still need to appear before a judge. Yes.
Interesting.
Yes, and I still need to appear before judges. However, we know that it's not what it used to be, and there are so many double standards that are being pushed back and forth. But I believe that the best way for us to handle that is through diplomacy, is through dialogue, but also through using the spaces that we've already taken as young people. For example, if you are a youth leader in your political party, you have the voice to actually speak on issues. And whether people listen to you or not, the point is you have that voice, and that is a space where you can use to mobilize, to make the movement better. I know that certain people think that young people need to be validated all the time. Sometimes we do not. Sometimes we do not need to be validated. It is how somebody just starts a Twitter space and says, today we're talking about bad roads, and then they keep tagging the Uganda Roads Authority. Be like, you're giving us bad roads, and people jump on the train because you're not the only one experiencing the bad roads. So mobilization is better when you can actually appeal to people's sense of responsibility in society. And I do not think that we are completely apathetic in Uganda, that we don't recognize what we need to do. However, there is one thing that makes me sad when I think about young people, because we think about our history we think about our lives in isolation of history. It's like we do not understand where this country is coming from. We do not understand the history of violence that we have gone through, and that makes it very difficult for us to understand what to do next, to understand that diplomacy is a better option, but also to understand that this is not a system that is working for us, because it's the same system that challenged the bad laws. I encourage young people to come together, but also to respect each other. We are only free when everyone is free. And that means that also we include marginalized groups like women and persons with disability, among others. Thank you.
Okay, interesting there. We are only free if we are
all free.
If we are all free. Our time is fast spent, but I'm going to get to you, Rodney, and then I'll pick your parting shots. Briefly in 3 minutes, or if you can keep it less. Tomorrow, the pressure from young people in positions, from young people and the people they are supporting, what do we expect?
Well, I think it's only fair that I appeal to all young people to ensure that they are not subjects of elite manipulation, because it is during times as this that the elite use the young people to perpetrate election violence, to antagonize in opponent camps.
Aren't young people elite as well?
Yes, they are.
You are elite.
In this context, I mean the political elite, the people that are firmly entrenched within this political system, are the people that have been there for quite a while and have actually found their way around the system and are manipulating young people to carry on these agendas and so forth. But I certainly hold a different view from what he earlier on asserted, that that it does not matter who represents our views as long as they are pro-youth. But I think we need to be deliberate about taking on an active role, because no one holds power with an intention of relinquishing it. And so what does this mean? This means that we must take on an active role to assert our position and to ensure that we are active players if we are to have a change in the status quo. But also, we need to interrogate the political will of our duty bearers in creating an enabling environment for young people to participate meaningfully. I will continue to reiterate my earlier assertion that we can have political systems and structures where these fees are done away with, and we encourage people or young people to come and take on these positions. But also it speaks to also the general economy, because sometimes you may not necessarily have to blame these young people from engaging in these vile acts during this the election period, because they have been between a rock and a hard place. Many of them are hell-bent on finding survival. And so when someone approaches them with 2,000, 3,000 shillings, and they tell them to come and dance kadodi, or they tell them to come and pin posters, then they are going to do it willfully, at the end of the day, at the expense of a real participation and meaningful representation. So to young people out there, as we approach these party primaries that are going to take place tomorrow, we condemn all forms of violence perpetrated by both the military, by both the security forces, and even the young people themselves. We have to realize that it is our role. We are our first security before we even call upon anyone. So let us be a brother's keeper. Let us be a sister's keeper, to ensure that we keep the peace, and then we can then go ahead to have a peaceful election. But other than that, lastly, I also really call upon our government to have a candid conversation about electoral reforms, because I think now the window has passed, but we saw different youth groups coming out to advocate for electoral laws, but at the end of the day, we did not see any real intervention in terms of coming up with these laws around electoral financing and the different aspects of election. So I think we should not tire about having this conversation for us to have a better political dispensation where the youth can meaningfully participate. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rodney. And we also don't outplay the role that civil societies are playing, especially in making sure that we have those electoral reforms. For example, the multi-party forum, the Netherlands Institute for Multi-Party Democracy, but also the multi-party youth forum and IOP. To get your parting shots, please keep it 1 minute. Starting with you, Emanzi, anything you love to tell us about the conversation, just in 1 minute.
Thank you. In 1 minute, peace should reign. Peace should reign because it's the foundation of our democracy as a country. If you look at the history of our country, we've not had a peaceful transition of power at all. It's an alien concept to us. And that comes back to our generation. This is a generational calling to ensure that for the first time in the history of our country, we have peaceful transition of power. And it's within our hands. It's within our means and it's within our capabilities. Let's all do what it takes not to engage in violence, to participate meaningfully as young people in this process, to ask the very tough questions, and to engage and be active in our civic duties. I thank you very much, and may God for God and my country.
Thank you. And Nancy, 1 minute.
I encourage all stakeholders to actually take responsibility. That means young people come out and vote, but do it peacefully. That means politicians come out and do not use young people. Stick to your agenda, but also ensure that there is a right political will going forward, because our country, we have only one country. We cannot burn it down just because of elections. We cannot burn it down just because of power. So I encourage everyone to actually take responsibility and to understand that there is action and consequence. And you deserve whoever you vote at the end of the day. Because if you decide to vote wrong, or if you decide to vote for 2,000 shillings, that is what you're going to get for the next 5 years. I don't know how sustainable that is. Thank you.
Rodney, please 1 minute.
Well, thank you very much. I want to begin by really appreciating U24 for creating this platform and this avenue to have young people engage in key critical discussions that will ultimately shape public discourse, but also policy discussions. I really, my parting shots and my final words would be to the young people out there to understand that before we answer the political question, the rest is secondary. And I feel so bad when I hear young people trying to distance themselves from the politics, because however much you try to hide away from the political questions, they will find you in your home, they will find you where you study, they'll find you in the hospital, in even the road that you are using. So we need to take on an active role, that we need to take on an active role in engaging in politics, in coming to stand for positions, and to weed out all these politicians that we claim are not accurately representing our plight. Away from that, I call for peace. Violence is never the answer. And as we go in for tomorrow's primary, let us do our very best to ensure that we hold violent-free elections. Thank you very much, Tracy Lynn. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Rodney. Thank you so much, Mujisha, for joining us. Thank you so much, Nancy, for joining us. It's been your Youth of Purpose, and I've been hosting Tracy Nankunda. We've been discussing the idea and the role of young people in national politics, and looking at specifically the party primaries that we shall be having tomorrow. So we do hope that tomorrow it is going to be peaceful elections everywhere. We hope so. But also we do encourage more young people to be vigilant. Do not be the person that is at the front line of violence, and do not also be the person that is at the front line of antagonizing. Rather, like Mugisha has said, be part of the organized team. We want to thank U24 for creating this platform, and also to appreciate those behind the camera and everyone who makes it possible. Thank you so much for watching. Wish you the best.
Youth of Purpose.
Hi, my name is Tracy.
And I'm Dora.
We're here.